Hey guys, it's Dino again, and recently on one of my past two videos I had a comment requesting that I do a tutorial on limiting, and so that's what I'm doing today. And thanks for the suggestion. If you guys have any more suggestions, I'd really appreciate that you comment, and I'd probably be happy to answer and help you guys out. I also appreciate that you're watching my video, and I'd really like it if you could check out my my personal production channel, which is in the description box. Get the link. My channel, my own songs. So yeah, thanks. So limiting is sort of like compression on steroids. Compression is thought to be more classically thought to be 1.1 to 1 ratio, all the way up to about 3.9 to 1 ratio. That's compression. And then limiting is pretty much everything above that. So 4.0 to 1 ratio, all the way up to infinity to 1 ratio. Why do we limit? Well, compression we use mostly to sort of as an effect to sort of tinker with the dynamic range, or even just the dynamics of a sound. You know, if we set a long attack and a short release and a low threshold, we might get a little bit more punch out of something, whereas if we set a higher threshold and a softer knee and you know, different attack and release settings, we might get something that is more lifting and gels things together, or smooth, or, you know, there's just a variety of things that you can use just compression for. Limiting is a little bit different. I think it's more of a technical tool where you can use it to get away with loud sounds on your mixer insert without clipping at all. So if you, like, you know, have a kick drum that's just clipping all over the place, and you know, put a limiter on it, you'll won't have to worry about that. It won't clip anymore because the limiter will strike them all down. You can also use limiters on your master insert when you're mastering your song. That way you can make your song sound like really, really loud. You might be wondering how certain artists get really, really loud songs when you use the same DAW as them, or you use the same you know, software in general. And you're probably wondering, how do I get this, you know, really loud sound that, you know, they get but I don't get? Well, when it all really comes down to is how they use mix bus compression, or even just compression in general on their mix, and then finally mastering limiting, which I'll kind of try to explain it to you here. I'm going to go over RMS in a later episode or a later tutorial, but for this one, let's just call it the average sound. The higher the average sound is in a song, the louder humans perceive it. We don't, you know, think of loudness like computers do, you know, where it's peaks and bits and samples. We think of it as like a continuous stream of audio. So, you know, the louder that the average sound is, the louder it sounds to us. Whereas perhaps if the louder a peak is, it might not sound that much louder to us, you know, as humans. So if I take the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I limit them at 5, so then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, then I turn, you know, the gain up by 5, so you have, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and each of those numbers, by the way, represents you know, a certain loudness. It's safe to say that if you just turned up the gain the first time when you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, you turned it up 5, not only would you be clipping, but it wouldn't be as loud as if you had 1, 2, or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, because the average is higher. And if I confused you, just totally disregard that last part, because as I said, I will go over RMS, which is basically the same thing, on a later tutorial. So I'll show you what I mean here, hopefully a little bit. So if we set the ceiling, which is on the fruity limiter, that's basically the threshold. The ceiling, at 0 dB, so it's not going to clip anything. You'll notice my track doesn't clip at all. First, I'm going to take the limiter off just to show you that it clips a little bit. I didn't gain stage all the way. So here it is. And you'll see, for whatever reason, the left channel just keeps clipping once in a while whenever the snare hits. So let's put the limiter on. So you saw right there that there was no clipping or anything, at least on a 44.1 bits or kilohertz system, or file session, because sometimes you might get what are called inner sample peaks, but that's a whole different thing. You'll see that it doesn't peak, or it doesn't clip at all, and that's because anytime the sound tries to go over the ceiling, which is at 0, it just completely knocks it down. And this is an example of a compressor or a limiter where it's got an infinity to 1 ratio. So you could go infinity decibels up, and it would only increase by 1 decibel. And obviously you can't have infinity decibels going over the threshold, so it's impossible to go over the threshold basically with this kind of limiter. Now, let me show you what happens if I turn up the gain while keeping the ceiling at the same spot. Alright, you're going to notice it gets louder, but it never clips. Alright, and notice, watch this bar over here, the master bar over here, okay? So I might have exaggerated quite a bit right there, but you'll notice that all the information is, pretty much all within, -8 to 0 dB. All the, peaks and troughs in the sound are within that range. You'll also notice on professional records that the peaks and troughs are, all the way up here. There's very little wiggle room up here. It's always going up and down, up in this region, very little down here. That's because they take a limiter and they turn the gain up and just smash it to the top so that it becomes really loud. That's what's going on with what's called the loudness wars, which if you get into mastering it all, or you look into any of that type of mastering procedure, you're going to see that there's quite a bit of debate out there whether people should crush their track with a limiter and make it loud, or retain the dynamics and keep it nice and dynamic. But there's kind of a competition out there right now as to who can make the loudest sounding album, and that's what's causing the loudness wars. So that's what it refers to. So if that's what you're hearing about recently, that's what they're talking about. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it about limiters. So yeah, limiters you can just use to limit peaks or do anything. If I wanted to move the ceiling down, check this out. Like I said, it's a threshold with infinity to 1 ratio, so if I just move the ceiling down, it, obviously crushes it. So yeah. I hope that answers some questions. That's limiting, pretty much, yeah. What else? Let me think. There's some other little neat things you can do with FL or fruity limiter, side chaining type of stuff, or you can use as a compressor limiter, all that kind of good stuff. You can do noise gating and expansion. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. Saturation. Yeah. I'll show you another limiter I have, Ozone. This is what I use to master a lot of the times. Some people say you gotta have hardware to master, but I don't really know of any true analog limiters that can do infinity to 1 ratio, which is what I need for, you know, getting a really loud record or a really loud song. And this one works exactly the same way. Threshold, replace that with ceiling, and you get the exact same thing. Just moving it down. Okay, so yeah, hope that was helpful. Hope you guys learned something. If you guys have any requests again at all about any type of sound engineering type of stuff, anything to do with different, you know, plugins I use, anything to do with sound design, I'm pretty decent at sound design. I'm not going to say I'm the best, because I would say mastering and mixing are pretty much my forte. I like mastering a lot. That's what I do. I can, you know, help you out with any of those kind of questions. I could certainly help you guys out with maybe, I don't know, 3x oscillator, Silenth, massive, anything like that. I don't like doing a whole lot of patch tutorials, you know, like can you make David Guetta's, you know, sexy bitch synth, or, you know, can you make Skrillex's growl synth, or, you know, Zed's whatever, you know, synth, feed me, I don't know, I can keep going on. I don't like doing those kind of tutorials because although you do learn how to make one patch, I think it's a lot more useful to simply open up your synth and mess around with the settings yourself. That's how I learned a lot of, you know, what I know about the synth. I did watch a lot of tutorials before started getting a feel for it, but after you get a feel for how different filters work within a synth or whatever, it's definitely good to you know, mess around with your own synth and, you know, create your own sounds. That's how the good sounds are created nowadays, just messing around. So yeah, oh, also, I do have a mastering service. I'll leave the link in the description for you guys. I'd be happy to master any songs for you guys. I use a lot of Ozone, but I can use various Waves plugins, and if you want, I could use perhaps my friend's BBE maximizer, but honestly I like Ozone better. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, I like Ozone a lot. Yeah, so that's another thing. And again, check out my songs, link in the description, and subscribe and like me, and thanks. See you next time. That is all.